Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Naviant Solution Spotlight on the Unity Client. We're going to move on up to the Unity Client from the other clients that are out there. My name is Guy Schrader. I'm the Manager of Sales Engineering here at Naviant, and I will be your sole presenter this morning. And just a few housekeeping items before we dive into things here. You are muted on the conference call for the GoToWebinar, so if you do need to communicate with me in any form or fashion, please use the chat box that's available in the GoToWebinar panel that typically appears on the right side of your screen. And just a brief reminder, please complete the survey at the end of this webinar so that we can help come up with different content in the future that you might be quite interested in. So without any further ado, let's dive into the agenda for the Unity Client. As normal, we're going to cover what is it, why should you consider it. We'll, through screenshots actually here, you're going to go ahead and see the client, how much does it cost, and how do you get it. So, what is the Unity Client? All things said and done, it is a platform. It is OnBase's most recent platform that was introduced a few versions ago within their product line, which is really now blending the combination of the OnBase Thick Client as well as the web client. Thick Client has always been out there, has always been very robust and a lot of capabilities, but there's been some shortcomings to it in that it's limited. Local install, you have to visit every single workstation. The scalable architecture has been missing. The web client was introduced many years ago. You now start doing some centralized administration there. It's a very scalable architecture. It's easy to deploy, but there are some limitations to it because it's built inside of a web browser. Introduce the Unity Client. It's really a smart client software application that now allows for a rich desktop-based environment for your users that is really optimized for a wide area network environment. So it takes the best of both of those worlds, but it is better. And it is that next generation of the OnBase clients. It's really designed for ease of use, and everything's patterned after the Microsoft Office look and feel. So if you use Microsoft Office version 2007 and more current, you have a very familiar tabbed ribbon bar look that was introduced. Made it much easier to use Microsoft Office at that point in time. So since Office has been deployed on over 1 billion desktops worldwide, everybody's gotten used to this. Introduce the Unity Client, and they've adopted that very similar look and feel so that users are going to be much more comfortable adopting this. So the increased adoption rates, productivity, people aren't hunting and pecking trying to figure out how do I enable this particular function, how do I get to this. Very simple to use. And all things said and done, if anybody understands Microsoft Office Suite, your costs for training are going to be minimized, and so should the support costs. Again, you shouldn't be receiving phone calls saying, how do I do this? It's very intuitive for the user. And again, it's optimized for that wide area network environment. So throughout the rest of this presentation, I'm going to be doing a lot of comparison between the OnBase Thick Client and the Unity Client. And I know that I'm shortchanging everything as it relates to the web client, but for interest of time, we're just doing that comparison between the Thick Client. In the Thick Client world, think of how you have to install that client for a user. You have to visit every workstation, you have to configure an ODBC data source to connect to the OnBase database, and that has to be done on every separate workstation that's going to be having OnBase installed. You have a Thick Client installer that needs to be pushed out to every workstation that leverages that same ODBC connection. Now, given your IT staff can use some different deployment tools to push that out, but the fact of the matter is when you have upgrades to the OnBase environment, you're going to have to go ahead and push out another new deployment package of the latest version of that Thick Client. So it takes some time from an IT perspective. Your end users utilizing the Thick Client need to have network access to the disk groups inside of OnBase, unless you're using distributed disk services. So there is some additional overhead in setting up all your different users. In the grand scheme of things, it's very labor intensive for your IT staff to maintain this as you go through different versions. In the Unity Client world, they've introduced something called the Click Once deployment. This is actually a Microsoft technology that they built into the deployment packages of a lot of different OnBase clients, but the Unity Client is the one that we're highlighting today. What this allows the system administrator to do is to put together a single deployment package that's going to be utilized by all users. And it could be as simple as sending an email to a single user that they just click on a hyperlink within that email, and then the OnBase client is automatically installed and available for that user. Now take that and multiply it by the dozens or hundreds of users, if not thousands of users that you have. Very simple to send out a single email that's now going to go ahead and install all of those OnBase clients to every user. So it's great for a first-time deployment, but it's also for the updates to the OnBase system. As a new version of OnBase is deployed within your organization, the system administrator, all that they need to do is to replace the deployment package with the latest version of the OnBase client. And the first time that the users log in to Unity from that point forward, it's going to do a check and say, do I have the latest version of OnBase? No, I don't. It's going to download that and install that version automatically for the user. So the IT administrative burden really goes away with deploying the client. I mentioned before, optimized for a wide area network environment. So many organizations today now are multiple sites, multiple cities, multiple different states, if not international. So your users are very dispersed, and you are now relying upon the internet in some form or fashion to communicate between your different offices. So in this example, just to show you how this works, your OnBase system is still centralized. You have a data center somewhere that has your OnBase database as well as your disk group locations. And now we add an OnBase application server to the mix. This application server is going to allow for that very quick access to the OnBase database through that same ODBC connection. So we don't have ODBC connections on the individual client workstations. It's just between the application server and the OnBase database. You have centralized file access between that application server to the disk groups. Again, you don't need to worry about all that bandwidth from the individual client workstation, nor do you need to worry about that single access to all the disk groups for all of your different OnBase users through network access. So this is all taking place on a very fast internal network, your data center that has all kinds of bandwidth available to it, and then your clients are going to connect to that through Hypertext Transfer Protocol, what the internet runs on, so you don't need to have really anything special in place. Once they have access to that application server, they can go ahead and gain access to OnBase through logging in their normal form or fashion. And everything happens on the server level for so many of the different activities. Before, the OnBase client was relatively large, and that did a lot of different processing on the client, on the client's PC. Now a lot of that server execution has been pushed up to that application server, where you can have a single beefy workstation but serving hundreds if not thousands of different users. So, as I mentioned before, this is the latest platform of OnBase. Unity is now being leveraged, that same look and feel, by a number of different OnBase clients. So if you have any of these clients today, Integration for Outlook is a great example, the Office Business Application or a recent version of Application Enabler, you're now seeing that Unity look and feel to it, and everything that you see in the box here, you don't need to buy the Unity client to get the capabilities of the Unity client through these different integrations. Unity Briefcase is an extension of the entire Unity client. So before I get any further here, we're going to be talking about a lot of different features and functionality, how they compare between the thick client as well as the Unity client. Log on to OnBase Community and search for the web feature matrix for your version of OnBase. And you can see for all the thousands of different OnBase features that are out there, how do you have that feature within the thick client, within the web client, within the Unity client, and within the different versions of the web. It's a great option to have at your fingertips to really see before you would actually deploy the Unity client, how does this compare to my current client? So I encourage you to go grab that. So from here on out, I'm going to be going through some of the different areas of Unity and kind of highlighting how it might be better than, again, the thick client. And I apologize to those heavy web server users out there. Wanted to keep this, for interest of time, going, talking about one of the specific clients. So for starters, we introduce personal pages within the Unity client. And as we walk through this, this is now going to be a screen where your individual users can add different tiles onto this personal page that allows them to customize their interface. What are the things that they do quite often on a daily basis? And you can see here kind of working from left to right. I have a custom query, a document search for accounts payable. I have some different workflow queues that I might need to be monitoring. I might have to create e-forms here or there. I might need to get to some specific documents where we can, time and time again, that are stored inside of OnBase, that we can put that there. Document knowledge transfer, we can go ahead and enable panels there. Maybe different folders that I need to access, or even reporting dashboards, which is a newer feature added to OnBase. I can get to a lot of those different capabilities. So just to talk through a couple of these, if I wanted to go ahead and take a look at this queue for the purchase order invoice review, I just move my mouse over that heading, I select it, that automatically drives me into the workflow interface directly into that particular queue, where now I can go ahead and interact with workflow natively, where I have all my different workflow tasks up here. A little bit differently, notice in that pane we also have the individual documents and more, given we can expand that out, but I have 10 documents that are currently sitting in this queue awaiting my work. I can go ahead and take my cursor again and now click on any one of those individual documents. That's going to drill me directly into that single document and give me my workflow actions that are available. So full feature capabilities here. Just to show you something different, maybe I need to interact with creation of purchase requisitions. So in this case, you see that AP purchase requisitions. Again, I click anywhere on that tile, it automatically opens up a brand new purchase requisition where I can go ahead and complete this. So think from a navigation perspective, it's very quick from the single interface rather than working my way through, albeit the simplified ribbon bar, to go ahead and navigate to different areas in the system. You do have a concept of favorites. Just like you have favorites inside of your different web browsers, you have the same thing inside of OnBase. And here you can see I have my different favorites that have already been highlighted. I got custom queries, employee profiles, interview forms, my homepage. So a similar concept to the personal page, but now it's just a list there that I can go ahead and take my mouse again, go up there and say, hey, when I invoke my custom queries, that's going to go ahead and open up my custom query screen. Very similar to if I went ahead and went up to custom queries right there. Now, when you're on any of these different interfaces, you can add them to your favorites relatively simply. So I'm in the document retrieval screen right now. All that I need to do once I'm on this screen is go up to my favorites again, and then we'll see an option here that allows us to add this layout to my favorites. Now I'd go ahead and select that, and now I would actually have my document retrieval on that favorites list. The Unity client has an integrated viewer built into it. And given you have something similar within the thick client here, so let's highlight the thick client here for a moment. I've done a document search for my AP packing slips, and I've returned a bunch of them. If I want to take a look at that first one for Office Supply Warehouse, I need to double click on it, and it opens up the viewer. The shortcoming here is that it always pops open a separate window, and it's probably going to obscure what I have on the screen in front of it. So while it works really well, there's a different way of doing it in a more optimized fashion inside the Unity client. So here's that same search that I performed inside the Unity client. Notice way down in the bottom, lower right hand corner, I have a double arrow down for this document viewer. I just select that, and that's going to enable that document viewer, so that now I can very quickly, even arrowing through my hit list here, if I wanted to go down to that second document, I just hit my down arrow and it automatically refreshes that document viewer. So again, it makes it more optimized for the user to interact with these documents very quickly, finding what they need and accessing it. The Unity client has this whole document information panel that is now enabled. And again, I want to compare and contrast the keywords, notes, and cross-references here just to show you how it works differently between the thick client, which is what we're viewing right now, and the Unity client. I say I want to go ahead and view my keywords. I right-click anywhere on the document image within the thick client, and it pops up a separate window and allows me to view or modify my keywords depending upon my permissions. Again, the drawback here is that it's obscuring your document image itself. You have to drag that window out of the way to be able to view your entire document view. When I perform that exact same function, right-click keywords, I can go ahead and view now over on the right side of my screen a separate panel, and my image is going to resize appropriately when this panel is open, so I can still navigate through my entire document quite simply. So again, I'm not obscuring any information. Back to the thick client. If I'm looking for notes, given I always have the ability of seeing the notes and the annotations, but one of my options is to right-click and view the different notes, and you can see the different notes here that I can navigate around and see some of the specifics. That obscuring my screen. Here, looking at those same notes, it's a nice interface where it now shows you the notes as well as any of the text within there, regardless of where that note is applied to the image. This last one is further down the page here. We can't quite see it, but I can still see the note text. If I wanted to navigate to that note actually on the document, I just have to double-click the note right here. It's another nice feature. Cross-references. We know that we can double-click in certain regions of our images to automatically invoke the cross-references to other documents in OnBase. So given this is not the best screenshot here, but I don't exactly know what's behind this, I always have to double click and I'm going to be able to see what documents come up. Within the Unity client now, that same document information panel on the right side, there is cross-references right there. By the way, we can navigate between my keywords, my notes, my cross-references once this is up. But I know that there's a purchase order out there. I just simply have to double-click on that purchase order, and it's going to go ahead and open up that particular document. Within the Unity client, we have now greater capabilities to group and sort our search results. A lot of the complaints that we've always had within the thick client is great, I get my hit list back, but I really have no capability of doing anything with that information. In the world of Unity, notice I have different column headings, and just like anything else within Microsoft Excel, if I double click like right on the gap between that, it's going to go ahead and size that accordingly. But I do have the capabilities now of taking any one of these column headings and dragging it up into the center region where it says group by area, and now you can see that I can group this, in this case, by the document type, where it's showing me I got 20 check images, and I can expand this out just by clicking on any one of the pluses. So it's a different way of now interacting with your search results that you're probably not used to within the thick client in any form or fashion. Again, goes directly back to efficiencies. Here's a custom query. Now, given custom queries even in the thick client have allowed us to go ahead and add more columns, and these columns can be sortable. So I can still sort on any of these columns like you can within the thick client by clicking on the column heading, but now I can take even multiple columns and do the same drag and drop up here. In this case, I have my vendor name as well as my invoice. So it's going to group things by my vendor, and then it's going to then group things by my invoice number underneath that vendor. Now I'm under Phone Shack and I have something very similar, and I can expand any of these out. Again, working with a larger list of document search results makes it much more efficient with the Unity client to be able to use this group and sort. There's an improved OLE viewer, and what we're really talking about here is to be able to view some of those outside documents. So let's use Word or Excel as examples here. Here's your thick client showing a Word document. So it's a Microsoft Word contract that's stored in the system. But interacting with that, given I do have all of my Microsoft Word capabilities, and if I have revision control or EDM services turned on, I can go ahead and make modifications to it. But you can see the interface isn't really that great. I always have to click on Save Documents. If I want to see my revisions or my renditions, I have to click here. If I need to look at my keywords, I have to click here. compare and contrast that same document now to the Unity client where I've retrieved it, given I have the fully integrated Microsoft Word viewer here. But a couple things that jump out at us. For starters, if we have multiple revisions of this document, it's highlighted. It's always going to show me when there's more than one revision, a button right here that I can very quickly access my document revisions. But I also have the entire Microsoft, the entire ribbon bar with my keywords, my cross-references, my document history available at my fingertips when I'm working with that particular document. Uploading documents, I believe, has always been somewhat problematic within the Thick client because there's no preview. So think in the Thick client here as we're looking at this, you can browse to any file. You can say, once you say I want to import this document, and then go ahead and index it. Great, but you almost have to have that file open on a different screen or somewhere else to be able to index that appropriately from image. Similar concept now within the Unity client that we have the ability to go ahead and browse to a file once we're in the upload dialog, index that document, but the key here is that I'm viewing that document regardless of file type. In this case an image, but if I actually had a Word document, I had a video, I can view that while I'm performing that particular indexing, and I just click on upload and then that document is available in the system. Again, makes it much easier. Unity Forms. I'm sure you've heard of Unity Forms by now. It's something that was introduced a few versions ago in OnBase. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you're using the Thick client and you retrieve a document that is a Unity form, you're going to get a message like this. It's a Unity form file format and cannot be displayed within the Thick client. Unity Forms were designed inside the Unity client here, but they can only be rendered inside the Thick client or the web client. So here's a Unity form that we've actually configured here. It's already been populated for a contract that you can see, very nice look and feel to it. And by the way, the Unity designer is built directly within the Unity client for those users that have permissions to be able to very simply create these different Unity forms. And we found through experience that these are much easier to deal with as compared to HTML forms that a lot of people are using. Unity has an integrated audio video player. In the Thick client, you launched any video or an audio file, it uses whatever the default audio or video viewer is outside of OnBase. They built that now directly into the Unity client, where you can see here just a screenshot from a video that was playing, but you do have up in the upper left there the ability to stop, pause that, play that particular video or audio file, and even the ability to go ahead and move inside that file to a different location. So a nice little feature that's added there. For those people that do scanning and indexing, they've come a long way with what they've put into the Unity client for indexing panel. And you can customize this, plus you can detach it. So I'm here within the Unity client. One of the options, once I'm in this scan index interface, is to configure my keyword panel. And again, this is a permissions driven, so you only hand this out to the appropriate individuals. But when I set this up for a particular scan queue, for a particular document type, I now have the ability to choose which of my different keywords here that I want to maintain here for indexing. Because look at the bottom three here: status, note text, and workflow reset status. These are workflow items. The person that's indexing this document would never ever provide those values, and for some of your indexing folks, that might confuse them in some form or fashion. You have the ability to remove those keywords, and then the remaining keywords, you have the ability to resort them. You can put them in a different order. In this case, I put it based upon typically the order that this information will be presented to me on a vendor invoice. Vendor name, vendor number, date, invoice number, the PO number, and then the invoice amount is going to be at the bottom of the document. So you can optimize your indexing through the use of this panel like this. So here by default, you're seeing what actually is a result of me customizing that index panel. But notice we have the ability to detach or attach this indexing panel, where now I can take that, move that off of the static location on the screen, and now I can place this indexing panel wherever I want. This could even be a separate monitor, and you still have all the same capabilities that you had before with autofill lookup sets, application enabler integration for screen scraping, so on and so forth. User administration. Think all the things that you need to do with your users. Oftentimes you had to go directly into the OnBase configuration client to be able to do that. Now they've added some limited capabilities to administer your users, and through this OnBase globe up here, find my mouse really quick, we can go into administration and user administration, and you can see now some of the different things that you can do for your different users. Highlighted here, you can refresh your users, you can create a user, edit an existing user, reset passwords, lock or unlock accounts, delete users, and even associate users to user groups, and even set security keywords directly within the Unity client. So now think of some of your user administration kind of goes away from your OnBase system admin and can be placed more at an end user perspective, albeit one that has some elevated permissions to be able to do some of these things. Workview. I know that you've heard a lot of talk about case management, Workview. It's fully integrated within this Unity client. Here you can see that I have a contract manager tab up on the top there. That just by clicking on that takes me directly into the Workview interface or the case manager interface. So it's some nice capabilities. We're not going to get into into case management whatsoever at this point in time. The Unity client also has an integrated browser and an RSS ticker. So this could be set up as your default page, where it might take you to a customer portal or your internal portal. In this case, I've added Naviant's website as my landing page here. This is now, I don't want to call it a fully functional web client, but you can click on things inside the web page that you happen to see to allow you to navigation. You just don't have the ability to navigate to a different URL by typing www.google.com or something like that. And notice you also have up here an RSS ticker, so if you're using RSS feeds in any form or fashion, you can point your users at that. Unity Pop. So for those people that are familiar with DocPop is something that you get with the web server that allows you to send out an email or place on a different website maybe links to documents. It's a similar concept, but now you can go ahead and send links that's going to launch that document inside the Unity client. In this case, you can see my LG draft contract number 41. When I click on that, that's going to now launch the Unity client and take me directly into that document through the Unity client with all the same different capabilities. My keywords, my cross-references, my history, my ability to send this to somebody else. The beauty of this, rather than sending it as an attachment, is that now the user actually interacting with this document is tracked inside the system saying, oh, Guy just retrieved this document on this particular date and this particular time. And you have some different capabilities here. You could go ahead and send a DocPop link to a folder. So this is standard OnBase folders now displayed within the Unity client directly from that link. But you also have the capabilities to send a link to a workflow queue, to a custom query results screen, or even complete a brand new form if you choose. So Unity Pop is quite versatile. I wanted to highlight the staple feature. The staple feature isn't something new within the Unity client whatsoever. It's available within the different clients, but a lot of people don't know about this, so I just wanted to take 30 seconds just to talk through this. Notice in the Unity client you have these little different staples. When I have two different documents up that might not be linked in any form or fashion, so this is not a cross-reference, but I've retrieved these two separate documents, I can go ahead and drag and drop that staple onto the second document. That's going to create a staple note, and now what's actually happened when I have that note there, you can see it tells me, hey, I have the staple to another document. I just need to go ahead and click on that icon in the upper right there anytime in the future, and that keeps that link kind of like a cross-reference, but it's not a cross-reference to the other document. Again, this is available within all the different clients and it behaves a little bit differently, but I wanted to highlight this, so that might be a quick takeaway. So, getting close to the end here, I know that we're really close on time here. These modules do require the use of the Unity client. So document knowledge transfer, for those people that have that module, doesn't require a Unity client, but to take advantage of the compliance piece. setting up tests or exams after somebody's read through a document to test and to make sure that they understand what they've just read. That's part of the Unity client. Reporting dashboards, a new module, requires the Unity client. As we talked about before, Unity Forms requires the Unity client for configuring the form. There is a special license if all that you're using Unity Form is just for configuring the Unity Forms. You could talk with your account rep about that. Unity Briefcase, Workflow Approval Management, Document Tracking, and there are also some industry-specific modules that do require the Unity client. The key here is that OnBase is relying more and more upon the Unity client as they're developing new modules, new functionality. You're going to see a lot more going into the Unity client than probably any of the other clients that are out there. The Unity client is a $10,000 enterprise license, so you don't have to worry about your users. If you would want to deploy now the Unity client to all your users, your existing concurrent or named users, as well as your workflow client licenses, are going to work with any of the different clients. All that you really need to enable the functionality that I've been showing you through this demo is this Unity Client Server Enterprise license, and that's a $10,000 module that you just need to talk with your Naviant account rep. They can give you more information. And with that, I made it ever so slightly more than 30 minutes. Let me see if I can get back to the questions to see if anybody has any questions here. I don't see any questions yet. Oh, I'm sorry, I take that back. There are a couple. Let me see if I have to scale my screen properly. How does this work in a terminal server environment? First question that came in. This works similar to anything else within Terminal Server or Citrix. This can be deployed. So rather than being a Unity client installed locally on the workstation, it would be a Unity client install on the Terminal Server or the Citrix server itself, and then your users would be interacting with that either as a published desktop or a published application. So there's really no concerns as it relates to that. Can an end user have both the Unity and FIC client running on their workstation? Yes, they can have both running, and with more recent versions of OnBase, they've done a really good job at ensuring that those multiple connections are only consuming a single client license, whether it be named user or concurrent user. So, but another great question. Can we get a copy of this demo? This presentation has been recorded. I will have this up on Naviant's YouTube channel probably later today, so you can watch this and share this with anybody else within your organization. And I believe those are the 3 questions that we have at this point in time. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you were able to attend with us. I do want to quickly pitch. Again, I just have to play games here, moving around. Our upcoming Naviant support webinar on July 15. They're going to be going through the concept of access. How are the different ways that you can access content inside the OnBase world? And while I don't have it up here, I know the summer, we're not even to summer, but I'm already talking about fall, and I apologize for that. But October 13th and 14th, the Naviant ECM Summit is going to be held up in at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. For those that haven't participated in that, it's a great opportunity to network with other individuals, and we do a great job providing a wide variety of different training that's out there. With that, I thank you so much again for taking the time. I hope that you found some value here. Feel free to reach out either to myself or to any of your Naviant contacts if you have any further questions on the capabilities. And just a quick reminder as we end this, please complete that survey as you're thinking about other things that you'd like to see presented in the future. Thank you so much. I will stick around just for a few more minutes before I get off of here to try to answer any other questions that might be out there. Thank you. Have a great day.